Emily, is Grandpa doing okay? Patricia? Yes, he's doing okay, but not perfectly. It's a bit of a hassle when older people hurt themselves. I wish they would consider how hard it is for us to take care of them. Patricia, that's not a very nice thing to say. It's all right. He's not doing too well anyway. I'm not good at dealing with the needs of older people, but you're used to it, so you'll manage. The other day, my husband's grandpa Michael fell in the garden and hurt his leg. It's not too bad, but he's already 82 years old. Because of his age, we're making sure he stays in bed to avoid making it worse. My mother-in-law won't even go near him, let alone help take care of him. I'm Emily, 30 years old. I got married 3 years ago and live with my husband Daniel's family. My husband used to be my boss at the company where I worked, a company started by his grandpa. When I first joined 8 years ago, my father-in-law was already in charge, and my grandpa-in-law was the chairman. But back then, the grandpa still handled all the big tasks and jobs in the company. 2 years ago, when Grandpa turned 80, he stayed as chairman but gave most of his public duties to my father-in-law. Michael, you've put in a lot of work over the years. Let Christopher handle the company stuff now and take it easy, my mother-in-law said with a smile. But to me, her words sounded kind of sarcastic. Grandpa-in-law can be stubborn, but he's known for being fair and kind. On the other hand, my father-in-law seems a bit immature. He doesn't speak his mind clearly and isn't as reliable as Grandpa. Plus, he always listens to whatever my mother-in-law says. My grandmother-in-law passed away before I met her. My husband and I started dating 3 years after I joined the company. He was leading our team with energy, and he seemed dependable, although a bit too sure of himself. Maybe I felt that way because I lost my dad early and grew up with just my mom. She passed away from illness 2 years ago, so now my in-laws are all I have left in terms of family. Not long after I got married, my mom got sick and needed me to take care of her. So I quit my job to be there for her. My husband's family didn't mind, and it might be because of one thing Grandpa said: it's only right to care for the mother who raised you alone. Don't worry, just take good care of her. Because of that, I could stay with my mom every day for a year without worrying about money until she passed away. My mother-in-law seemed a bit unhappy, but I was really thankful. But ever since Grandpa handed over the company to my father-in-law, things have been changing. People don't listen to Grandpa's ideas as much anymore, and I feel like they're not treating him with the same respect. At first, I thought it was just me imagining things, but seeing how my mother-in-law and husband act, it feels real. My father-in-law doesn't seem to care much, and it's like he's ignoring Grandpa now that he's basically retired. Seeing how my in-laws behave, I can't help but feel angry. Hey Patricia, and you too. Don't you think you're being a bit distant towards Grandpa? What's the problem? Grandpa tries to talk to you, and you barely answer him. You don't even try to help him out. I don't have time to deal with old people. You can take care of Grandpa. You're the one who's free. There's no need to speak like that. Shahan, tired from work. Don't bother me with trivial stuff. This is how it always is. No one listens to what I say, and my grandpa-in-law doesn't speak up to his family about it. Now, I'm the only one who talks to him at home. Grandpa, it's a nice day today. How about we take a short walk outside? Your leg seems to be getting better, and it might be good for your recovery. Thanks, let's go out for a bit. Then we walked to the park together. Many families were there, and children were playing happily. My grandfather-in-law watched them with a smile. Christopher and Daniel, just like those kids, Grandpa. I was so busy with work that I couldn't spend much time with the boys. Maybe that's why I feel like I didn't raise Christopher and Daniel properly, my grandfather-in-law said, sounding a bit sad, almost as if he was speaking to himself. Christopher is my father-in-law, and Daniel is my husband. I think about how we can all be kinder to my grandfather-in-law, but I can't think of a good solution. Then my in-law suggested building a new house for him. This house is more than 50 years old, right? It's poorly laid out and hard to use. Instead of spending money on repairs, it would be better to build a new house in a more convenient location. A new house. Michael is getting older, and while it's good he only got hurt last time, we never know what might happen in the future. So let's make the new house accessible for him, so we won't have trouble if he needs care. That makes sense. We can even put Michael's room in the middle so everyone can easily look after him. Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. All right, it's settled then. Regarding the expenses, if it's a house for all of us, I'll cover it. Talk to Mr. Jones about the finances. Classic Michael. Thank you, we really appreciate it. My mother-in-law said with a happy smile. It seems like they only praise him when they need money. But if everyone takes care of my grandfather-in-law after we move to the new house, I thought there couldn't be anything better. Mr. Jones is the company's legal advisor and also manages my grandfather-in-law's personal finances. My grandfather-in-law likes his honesty and has kept him around for almost 30 years. He's 58 now and the person my grandfather-in-law trusts the most. I've met him a few times and he seems really trustworthy. He's always concerned about my grandfather-in-law's health, and sometimes I feel like he cares for him more like a son than his real sons do. Knowing there are people like him around my grandfather-in-law gets me some comfort. I didn't know exactly what kind of house they were building or where it was going to be, but my mother-in-law seemed really happy, and the three of them were looking at interior design magazines and discussing things, so it seemed like everything was going well. Then something. I expected it to happen. It turned out that my grandfather-in-law had a debt of $1,820,000. Wait, what's this about $1,820,000? My grandfather-in-law had co-signed a loan for a friend's company, but that company ran into trouble, and now the debt fell on my father-in-law. Wait, they're not going to take the house, right? It's still under construction. Since the contract is already done, and like Patricia said, it's in the president's name, so it's okay. My mother-in-law said with relief. Oh, thank goodness. I'm glad things turned up the way I suggested, I said. Hearing that conversation, I realized for the first time that the house was in my father-in-law's name, even though my grandfather-in-law had paid for it. It seemed like something my mother-in-law would do. I also wondered why they didn't consider giving up the house to help pay off the debt. Hey, this debt is Michael's responsibility, not ours, over the company's, right? Well, it was signed under Michael's name. Oh, okay then, no problem. I couldn't see any good in the situation, but since my grandfather-in-law didn't say anything during that conversation, I didn't say anything either. After all, it's not an amount of money I could handle. Then, a few days later, my grandfather-in-law's behavior started to change slowly. Grandpa, what do you want for lunch? Who are you calling Grandpa? I'm only 50. You have no right to call me that? Huh, sorry, Emily, right. At first, I thought he was just lost in his thoughts, but when it kept happening, I started to feel worried. Patricia, where's my food? What are you doing? Grandpa, I'm Emily. Patricia is your daughter-in-law. You already ate your meal. I didn't eat. Are you trying to starve me? I started to wonder if my grandfather-in-law's behavior change was triggered by the huge debt, and maybe the fact that none of his family members were trying to help him made it even harder for him. What could I do to help him? I tried to take him to the hospital, but he refused to go. Perhaps he didn't want to admit that he might have dementia. I didn't want to push him, but I felt powerless on my own. I talked to my husband about it, but he just said it wasn't his problem. I couldn't rely on my mother-in-law either, so I thought my father-in-law was my only option. Yeah, Patricia told me, Daniel. They suspect it might be dementia. Could you come to the hospital with us? But it's not that serious yet, right? If we go to the hospital, others will find out about my dad having dementia. There are medications now that can help slow down the progression. Well, there's no need to be in a hurry. Let's observe him a bit longer. Since Emily is here, everything will be fine, won't it? I couldn't shake the feeling of how unreliable these people were. I couldn't rely on them. Grandpa, let's go to the hospital. Let's get you checked out properly. Who are you? Where do you think you're taking me? You're plotting something. I almost cried seeing how my once gentle grandfather-in-law had become so stubborn. But my mother-in-law just laughed, finding it amusing. Even if he used to be the chairman, his time is over now. Everything, even the company, belongs to Christopher, Patricia. Grandpa isn't completely out of it. He can hear everything. He'll forget everything soon. He'll start wandering, dribbling. Just the thought of it gives me chills. He's nothing but a burden now. How can you say that? Grandpa has worked hard for the family his whole life. My mother-in-law's words made me both angry and sad. But my grandfather-in-law simply smiled. See, this old man doesn't understand anything, Patricia, she said with a laugh. I was furious at my mother-in-law's callousness, but I held on to hope. Once we moved into the new house that Grandpa had helped build, maybe things would change. Maybe the family would show him gratitude and kindness. I couldn't completely let go of that faint hope. 2 months later, the house was finally finished. For days, I had been packing my in-laws' and husband's belongings while mine and my father-in-law's things remained mostly untouched. Every time, I tried to pack my own things, but I was given more tasks by my in-laws and husband, preventing me from making any progress. But I thought it would be okay to move the smaller items later since this house wasn't going anywhere on moving day. After most of the stuff had been moved, I went to call my father-in-law. But my husband said, you and Grandpa can stay here. What? You want us to stay in this house? But we don't need any extra baggage in the new house. So from now on, you and Grandpa will live here. And I'll give you Grandpa's debt too. Well, at least you can be a housekeeper. Come on, let's go. Yeah, I'm coming. Good luck with paying off the debt and taking care of Grandpa. With those words, my in-laws cheerfully got into the car and drove off. I was stunned for a while. I couldn't immediately understand what had just happened. Were we just abandoned? And not just me, but my grandfather-in-law too. They were the only ones going to live in the new house. It took me a while to comprehend because it was beyond my imagination that someone could do something so cruel. When I went back into the room where my grandfather-in-law was, I felt okay about looking after him. That was my plan from the beginning. As I was getting ready to say something to him, he turned around suddenly, as if he knew I was there. "Do they leave already?" he asked. His face looked very different from how it used to be just a few months ago. Honestly, he seemed like a different person. "I was just talking to Mr. Jones," my grandfather-in-law said. "Did you finish firing the unnecessary staff, Chairman?" "Yes, all done. Shall we go?" Where are we going?" "To our new house, of course." I left my old house with my grandfather-in-law, not really understanding what was going on. The next month, I got a lot of calls from my mother-in-law and husband. My grandfather-in-law said he didn't want to talk to them anymore, but I picked up my husband's call because we were talking about getting a divorce. "Hey, Emily, is Grandpa with you?" When I went to the old house, it was up for sale. "It's not worth $1,820,000, my husband said. "You can't use it to pay off the debt." "Is that why you left?" "What do you mean? Let me talk to Grandpa." Dad isn't answering at all. That forgetful old man has done something crazy. I knew what my husband was talking about, but I wanted to hear his perspective. Grandpa sold the company's stocks to the executive director. Because of that, the executive director became the biggest shareholder, and they held shareholders' meeting and a board meeting. And Dad got fired as president. But maybe Grandpa thought the executive director was the right person to run the company. The executive director must have tricked the old man into selling the stocks. This isn't right. You're getting something wrong. Grandpa doesn't have dementia. If anything, he seems more clear-headed than before. Until the day we moved, I had seriously believed that my grandfather-in-law had dementia. It turns out he had been suspicious since my mother-in-law mentioned building a house to live with him. So he came up with a plan. He pretended to have dementia to see how my in-laws and husband would react. And just as he expected, they revealed their true selves one by one. In the end, they abandoned my grandfather-in-law and me. I struggled to hold back my laughter because everything unfolded exactly as I predicted. my grandfather-in-law said. I was surprised, relieved, and a bit conflicted. To trick your enemy, you must first trick your allies, he chuckled. It seemed he had been getting updates on the company from the executive director and Mr. Jones. With my grandfather-in-law out of the picture, my father-in-law and husband did whatever they wanted, ignoring the opinions of the employees and using the company funds for their own enjoyment. Even though my grandfather-in-law initially handed the company to my father-in-law, he became worried about the future and took this action. Ultimately, he decided he couldn't trust his son and left the company in the hands of the executive director. What about the $1,820,000 debt? My husband asked. That's taken care of, I replied. It turned out my grandfather-in-law had guaranteed a loan for a friend's dad, but he had personal assets that covered it and more. After stepping back from the company, he invested in real estate and made a good profit. But if I had mentioned that, my mother-in-law and husband would have targeted it. That's why I only mentioned the debt. The friend's dad had helped my father-in-law in the past, and now the land he owned was going to be turned into a resort, fetching a high price. You're joking, my husband exclaimed. But are you guys okay? I asked. We're not okay. Both my father and I were fired from the company. What do we do now? He worried. Well, there's also the mortgage on the house, I reminded him. What? What do you mean, the mortgage on the house? My husband asked, puzzled. Haven't you figured it out yet? Grandpa was supposed to cover all the house expenses. Maybe you don't remember what he said back then, I replied. When my mother-in-law discussed money with Grandpa, he made it clear that he would only pay if it's a house where everyone, including me, would live. Otherwise, he wouldn't contribute. Even though the house was in my father-in-law's name, Grandpa intended to pay only if everyone lived together. That's because you assumed Grandpa would foot the bill and didn't examine the documents properly, right, Christopher? I remarked. You're kidding, my husband explained. Later on, my parents-in-law lost the house they had built because they couldn't keep up with the mortgage payments. Now they reside in a more than 50-year-old apartment, struggling to settle the unpaid loan. My mother-in-law and husband have been reaching out to me, suggesting we all live together, but that's not feasible anymore. My grandfather-in-law has retired from his chairman position and bought an old house in the countryside, where we now live together. Emily, you're free to live wherever you want. You don't need to worry about living expenses, my grandfather-in-law assured me, but I chose to stay with him. If I'm not a bother, please let me stay by your side, I told him. When I expressed my feelings, tears filled my grandfather-in-law's eyes. Thanks to Mr. Jones, the divorce went through, and steps were taken to remove my ex-father-in-law and ex-husband from the inheritance. I officially became my grandfather-in-law's adopted daughter. If anything happens to him, my father now, I'll be there for him till the end. Now we both find joy in working together in the fields. Dad, check out this radish. It's huge. Under the bright sunlight, we share warm moments. I wish for these days to last just a bit longer.
Your birthmark makes you ugly. Diana's words cut through the silence of our family dinner like a knife. My hand instinctively rose to touch the port wine stain that covered the left side of my face, a habit I developed over years of enduring stares and whispers. My name is Olivia, and at 28, I'd spent my entire life learning to embrace my birthmark. That is, until I married into the Anderson family 6 months ago. My husband James squeezed my hand under the table, but remained silent as his mother continued her tirade. I mean, really, Diana went on, swirling her wine glass dramatically. Couldn't you at least try harder to cover it up? There are so many makeup products these days. It's embarrassing having to explain to my friends why my son married someone who looks like that. The dining room felt suffocating. James's sister Amy smirked from across the table, while his father George suddenly became very interested in his mashed potatoes. No one spoke up. No one ever did when Diana started her attacks. I'm a dermatologist, Diana, I said quietly, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. This is a vascular birthmark. It's not something makeup can simply cover up. Well, then maybe you're not a very good dermatologist, she sneered, standing up to grab my still full plate. If you can't even fix your own face, how can you help others? With a dramatic flourish, she dumped my dinner into the trash. I felt James tense beside me, but still he said nothing. 6 months of marriage and he had yet to defend me against his mother's cruelty. The silence hurt more than Diana's words ever could. You know what? I pushed back my chair, the screech against the hardwood floor making everyone wince. I think I'm done here. Not just with dinner, but with all of this. Olivia, wait, James finally spoke, reaching for my arm. But I was already gathering my things. No, James. I've waited 6 months for you to stand up to your mother. I've endured every snide comment, every backhanded compliment, every deliberate attempt to humiliate me. I'm done waiting. Diana's triumphant smile only fueled my determination. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I've been working on something revolutionary in my dermatology practice. Something that could change everything for people with vascular birthmarks like mine. You think this birthmark makes me ugly? I turned to face Diana, my voice stronger than ever. This birthmark made me who I am. It's why I became a dermatologist. It's why I've spent the last 5 years developing a new treatment protocol. And it's why I know exactly who I am and what I'm worth. The smile slipped from Diana's face, replaced by confusion. She wasn't used to me fighting back. What treatment protocol? James asked, finally showing interest. Too little, too late. You'll see, I replied, grabbing my car keys. Everyone will see. But right now, I'm going home. My home, not this house of judgment and cruelty. As I walked out, I heard Amy Stage whisper, "Drama queen, she's probably making it all up." Let them think that. In 6 months, my research would be complete. The clinical trials were already showing promising results that would revolutionize how we treat vascular birthmarks. I'd been selected to present my findings at the International Dermatology Conference, and several major medical journals were interested in publishing my work. But they didn't need to know that yet. Let Diana think she'd won. Let James stew in his cowardice. Let Emmy snicker behind her perfectly manicured hands. I drove home to my apartment, the one I kept despite James's insistence we sell it after the wedding. Another decision that suddenly seemed prescient rather than paranoid. As I looked in the mirror that night, I traced the edges of my birthmark. This part of me that Diana found so revolting had driven me to study medicine, to specialize in dermatology, to develop new treatments for others like me. My phone buzzed with messages from James. "Come back. We can talk about this. Mom didn't mean it. You're overreacting." I turned off my phone and opened my laptop instead. My presentation for the conference needed finalizing, and I had a call with the medical board in the morning about fast-tracking approval for my treatment protocol. Diana thought my birthmark made me ugly. She had no idea it had made me unstoppable. The next 6 months flew by as I focused on clinical trials, research papers, and getting ready for the International Dermatology Conference. I buried myself in work, finding comfort in the positive results of my treatment. My phone was mostly silent. James's messages went from daily pleas to weekly check-ins, then stopped altogether. Diana, however, made sure her opinions were known. She told everyone that I had abandoned her precious son and that my vanity over my birthmark had ruined our marriage. If only she knew the truth. One morning, as I was reviewing patient data, my colleague Sophia burst into my office, holding a tablet excitedly. "Olivia, look, the conference schedule is out. You're giving the keynote speech." I took the tablet, my heart racing as I saw the announcement. My research wasn't just included. It was the breakthrough of the year. The treatment I developed was being called revolutionary. "This is huge," Sophia said, sitting on my desk. "And the timing is perfect. Did you see who else is coming?" I scanned the attendee list and froze at a familiar name. Dr. Marcus Anderson, head of dermatology at Boston General, my former father-in-law. "George will be there," I whispered. "Which means Diana will find out." "Exactly," Sophia grinned. "And wait until they see your results. The before and after photos are amazing." She was right. My treatment didn't just reduce the appearance of vascular birthmarks. It helped normalize the affected blood vessels while protecting the surrounding tissue. The results were incredible, and I had even tested it on myself. The port wine stain that Diana had mocked me for had faded significantly. Not completely, that wasn't the goal, but enough to prove that the treatment worked. More importantly, it gave hope to others like me. 2 weeks before the conference, I had an unexpected visitor at my clinic. Emmy, my former sister-in-law, stood in the waiting room, looking nervous. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. She hesitated, then handed me a magazine, a medical journal featuring my research. "Dad left this at home. Mom saw it and lost her mind. She thinks you're trying to embarrass her." I laughed. "Of course she does. Everything's about her." "James saw it too," Amy added. "He's been different since you left. Quieter. He even stood up to Mom last week." "Too little, too late," I replied, giving the journal back. "Is there something you need?" Amy touched her neck, trying to hide a small strawberry hemangioma, a type of vascular birthmark. "It showed up a few months ago," she admitted. "Mom's making me wear turtlenecks, saying I'll embarrass the family like you did." The irony wasn't lost on me. Diana's perfect daughter now dealing with the very thing she ridiculed me for. "The conference is in 2 weeks," I said gently. "I'll be talking about treatments for vascular marks, including hemangiomas. You're welcome to come." Amy's eyes widened. "Really? Even after everything?" "This isn't about family drama, Amy. It's about helping people who feel ashamed of things they can't control. Sound familiar?" She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Olivia. I didn't realize how cruel we were until it was me." As she left, I thought about how Diana's behavior had affected her children. James's inability to stand up for himself. Amy's need for perfection. My treatment could help with physical marks, but some scars went deeper. The day of the conference arrived. I stood backstage, reviewing my presentation one last time. I saw George in the audience, his face unreadable. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "Diana and James just arrived. Show them what they lost." I took a deep breath and walked onto the stage as the moderator introduced me. The lights were bright, but not enough to hide Diana's shocked face. She saw the change in my birthmark, my confidence, and the respect I earned from the medical community. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady, "today I'm presenting a breakthrough in treating vascular birthmarks. But this isn't just about changing appearances. It's about changing lives. It's about showing people that their differences don't define their worth." I started my presentation, and I saw Diana whisper to James. But this time, he wasn't listening. He was watching me, realizing what he had lost by choosing his mother's approval over his wife. This was the start of a new chapter in my life, one that had nothing to do with the Andersons. My research would help countless people, and my own journey of healing was just beginning. The response to my presentation was overwhelming. As I concluded, the auditorium erupted in applause. Doctors, researchers, and medical journalists swarmed the stage, eager to learn more about my treatment protocol. Through the crowd, I caught glimpses of the Anderson family's reactions. George approached first, extending his hand professionally. "Remarkable work, Olivia. Truly groundbreaking." The pride in his voice carried a hint of regret. "Too late, like father, like son." Diana remained in her seat, her face a mix of emotions I couldn't quite read. James stood awkwardly at the edge of the crowd, looking lost. But it was Amy who surprised me most, pushing through the throng of people with tears in her eyes. "Can you help me?" she asked quietly, touching her neck where her hemangioma lay hidden beneath a high collar. "Can your treatment work for me too?" Before I could answer, Diana appeared behind her, grabbing her arm. "Amy, don't be ridiculous. We'll find you a proper doctor, not someone woe." "A proper doctor," I interrupted, keeping my voice level. "Like the 3 specialists you've already seen, Diana? The ones who couldn't help." Amy's shocked expression confirmed my guess. My treatment protocol has shown remarkable results with hemangiomas. But of course, the choice is Amy's. 2 months later, Amy became one of my patients. During her treatments, she shared how my departure had sparked changes in the family. James had finally moved out of his parents' influence, starting therapy to address his codependency. George had taken a step back from his practice, realizing how his passive behavior had enabled Diana's toxicity. Diana, however, remained Diana. She tried to discredit my research, spreading rumors in their social circle about experimental treatments and dangerous procedures. But medical results speak louder than malicious gossip. 1 year after that fateful dinner where Diana had called me ugly, I stood at a podium again, this time accepting a prestigious medical innovation award. My treatment protocol had been approved for widespread use, and clinics around the world were adopting it. As I gave my acceptance speech, I spotted a familiar face in the audience. Diana had come, uninvited and unexpected. But this time she wasn't sneering. She sat quietly, watching as I received a standing ovation from the medical community she'd once claimed I was embarrassing. "Dr. Bennett," a reporter caught me after the ceremony, "your treatment is being called revolutionary. What inspired you to develop it?" I thought about Diana's cruel words, about James's silence, about all the years of stares and whispers. "Sometimes," I replied, "the very thing people use to tear you down becomes the foundation for lifting others up." Later that evening, Diana approached me at the reception. She aged somehow, the weight of her bitterness showing in new lines around her mouth. "I suppose," she said stiffly, "I owe you an apology." I looked at her thoughtfully. "No, Diana, you owe yourself one. Your cruelty toward me, toward Amy, came from your own insecurities. I hope you find peace with that someday." As I walked away, I heard her call after me, "You've changed." I turned back one last time. "No, Diana. I was always this strong, this capable, this beautiful. You just couldn't see it through your own prejudice. Goodbye." Today, my clinic specializes in treating patients with various skin conditions. Amy works with me now, her own experience helping her connect with patients in a unique way. Her hemangioma has improved significantly, but more importantly, she's learned to see herself as more than her appearance. James occasionally sends cards, birthday wishes, holiday greetings, always signed with an apology he never managed to say in person. I keep them in a drawer, reminders of how far I've come and what I refused to settle for. As for my birthmark, it's still there, lighter now but visible. I could continue treatments, fade it completely, but I choose not to. It's part of my story, a reminder that our perceived flaws often lead us to our greatest strengths. Deanna was right about one thing that night. My birthmark did define me. Not by making me ugly, but by making me resilient, compassionate, and determined enough to change not just my life, but the lives of others. And that's a kind of beauty she'll never understand. "You'll never prove it was me," Lisa smirked, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her wine glass as I doubled over in pain at our family dinner table. Through my blurred vision, I could see her satisfied expression while chaos erupted around us. My husband James was calling 911, his voice panicked as he described my symptoms. My mother-in-law Margaret hovered nearby, alternating between concerned glances and suspicious looks. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 32, I never expected to be rushed to the emergency room during what should have been a routine Sunday family dinner. The bitter taste in my coffee should have been my first warning. But I dismissed it, not wanting to cause a scene. Lisa, my sister-in-law, had insisted on pouring it herself, claiming it was a new premium blend she'd discovered. "Something's wrong," I gasped, my stomach cramping violently. I think I've been poisoned." Lisa's laugh cut through the room like glass. "Always so dramatic, Olivia. Maybe you're just allergic to something. Or maybe," she paused, her voice dripping with false concern, "you're pregnant?" The paramedics arrived within minutes, their efficient movements a blur as they loaded me onto a stretcher. Through the haze of pain, I heard Lisa's voice again, closer this time, whispering so only I could hear, "Good luck proving anything. No one will believe you anyway. They never have." She was right about one thing. No one had believed me before. For the past 3 years since I'd married James, Lisa had been systematically trying to destroy me. Small things at first, missing items, altered conversations, subtle manipulations that made me look careless or forgetful. But lately, her actions had become bolder, more dangerous. Last month, my brake lines had been mysteriously cut. The mechanic called it tampering, but there was no proof. 3 weeks ago, my allergy medication had been replaced with something else, sending me into a severe reaction. Again, no proof. As the ambulance sped toward the hospital, I fought to stay conscious. The paramedic was asking questions, taking vital signs, but all I could think about was the look on Lisa's face. She finally done it, escalated to something that couldn't be explained away as an accident or coincidence. "Stay with us, Mrs. Parker," the paramedic said, his voice firm but kind. "We're almost there. Can you tell me what you ate or drank before the symptoms started?" "Coffee," I managed to say. "Just coffee." Lisa made it. The emergency room was a flurry of activity. Blood draws, questions, more tests. James arrived shortly after, his face pale with worry. "Olivia, honey, what happened?" "Lisa says you were acting strange all evening before you got sick." Of course she did. Lisa had been laying the groundwork for weeks, making subtle comments about my unstable behavior, planting seeds of doubt in James's mind. She'd always been jealous of our relationship, convinced I'd somehow stolen her brother away from her. "James," I grabbed his hand, my voice weak but urgent. "You have to believe me. Lisa. She did this. She's been trying to hurt me for months." I saw the doubt flicker across his face, the same expression he always wore when I tried to expose his sister's actions. "Liv, you're not thinking clearly. Lisa would never. She's family." Family. The word felt bitter in my mouth. Family didn't try to destroy you. Family didn't poison you during Sunday dinner. The doctor returned with initial blood test results, his expression grave. "Mrs. Parker, we found something concerning in your blood work. Something that suggests this wasn't a simple case of food poisoning." Lisa's confident smirk flashed through my mind again. "You'll never prove it was me." But as the doctor continued speaking, I realized the blood tests had revealed something far more sinister than just poison. Something that would change everything. Lisa had made a crucial mistake, one that would finally expose not just this attempt on my life, but a pattern of behavior that went back much further than anyone realized. The monitor beside my bed beeped steadily as the doctor explained what they'd found. With each word, the pieces started falling into place. Lisa hadn't just tried to poison me. She'd accidentally exposed her own dark secret, one that would turn her entire world upside down. I closed my eyes, remembering the satisfied look on her face as I collapsed at dinner. She thought she finally won, finally found a way to get rid of me for good. But she had no idea what was coming. Sometimes the truth reveals itself in the most unexpected ways, and as I lay there in the hospital bed, I realized this wasn't the end of the story, it was just the beginning. The blood test results changed everything. Dr. Stevens sat at the edge of my hospital bed, his face serious as he explained what they'd found. "Mrs. Parker, your blood shows traces of not just one type of poison, but a complex mixture of toxins. The concerning part is that these particular combinations match 3 unsolved poisoning cases from the past 5 years, all of them involving young women in their early 30s. My heart raced as I processed this information. 3 other cases, he nodded, glancing at his tablet. All 3 women survived, but they were never able to prove who poisoned them. The cases went cold. The most recent was 8 months ago, just before you married James." Suddenly, memories started flooding back. Lisa's strange comment at my engagement party. "You're lucky number 4, aren't you?" At the time, I thought she was referring to James' past relationships. Now it took on a much darker meaning. The police arrived shortly after, 2 detectives who introduced themselves as Martinez and Cooper. They listened intently as I recounted everything. The coffee, Lisa's behavior, the previous accidents that I'd suspected were her doing. "Mrs. Parker," Detective Martinez said, "we're going to need a detailed statement. These cases, they've been on our radar for years. We just never had enough evidence to connect them." James walked in during my interview, his face pale as he heard the detectives discussing the other cases. "This can't be right," he protested. "Lisa's a pharmaceutical researcher. She would never." "A pharmaceutical researcher?" Detective Cooper's head snapped up. "Where exactly does she work?" "Meridian Labs," James replied. "She's been there for 6 years." The detectives exchanged meaningful looks. "Meridian Labs had a break-in 5 years ago," Martinez explained. "Several experimental compounds were stolen. The same compounds we found traces of in the previous victims." I watched as the color drained from James's face. His sister, his brilliant, perfect sister, was suddenly being revealed in a completely different light. "There's more," Detective Cooper added. "All 3 previous victims had connections to your brother, Mr. Parker. One was his college girlfriend, another was his coworker he briefly dated, and the third was a woman he'd been seeing just before he met Olivia." James sank into the chair beside my bed, his hands trembling. "This can't be happening. Lisa, she's always been protective of me. But this? Protective?" I laughed bitterly. "James, she's been systematically targeting women in your life. I'm just the first one who survived long enough to expose her." The hospital room fell silent as the weight of this revelation settled over us. Lisa hadn't just tried to poison me. She'd been practicing, perfecting her technique on other women who got too close to her brother. Detective Martinez stood up. We have enough to bring her in for questioning. The lab results combined with her access to the stolen compounds gave us probable cause. Wait, I said, remembering something. Check my phone. I started recording our family dinners after the brake line incident, just audio recordings. I thought if something happened. Cooper quickly took my phone, and soon Lisa's whispered threat played clearly through the speaker. Good luck proving anything. No one will believe you anyway. They never have. James buried his face in his hands. Oh God, Olivia. All this time, you were telling the truth, and I didn't believe you. I let her. Mr. Parker, Martinez interrupted gently. We need to move quickly. Your sister's expertise means she'll know how to cover her tracks. Is there anywhere she might go if she suspects we're onto her? Before James could answer, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Lisa. You should have died at dinner. Now I'll have to try harder. Family dinner's canceled next week. Permanently. The detectives immediately sprang into action, calling for backup and issuing a BOL for Lisa. But as I watched them rush out of the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Lisa had spent years perfecting her methods, carefully selecting her victims. She wouldn't give up easily. James gripped my hand tightly, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry, Olivia. I should have protected you. I squeezed his hand back, knowing we'd need each other for what was coming. Because somewhere out there, Lisa was planning her next move. And this time, she had nothing left to lose. The heart monitor beeped steadily as night fell over the hospital. Each sound a reminder that I was still alive, still here to expose the truth. But somewhere in the darkness, a woman who'd gotten away with attempted murder 3 times before was plotting her revenge. And I had a feeling the next family dinner would be one none of us would ever forget. In the days that followed, the police were everywhere, uncovering shocking truths. Lisa was missing, but her secrets were coming to light. Detective Martinez visited me at the hospital with a thick file. We found her journal, he said. Hidden in her desk at Meridian Labs. She wrote down everything. Every poisoning, every attempt. She was obsessed with protecting your husband, and it started years ago. I was leaving the hospital that afternoon, but nothing felt safe anymore. Every shadow seemed dangerous, and every stranger felt like they could be Lisa, ready to finish what she started. Then the phone rang. You ruined everything, Lisa's cold voice said. But I can fix it. One last family dinner, Olivia. Just you and me. Or I start sending those experimental compounds to every member of this family. Let's see how James handles watching everyone he loves suffer. I should have called the police or told James. But I knew Lisa wasn't bluffing. She had already shown how far she'd go. Where? I asked. Our childhood home. Tonight at 8. Come alone, or I start mailing packages. I left a note for James before he came home from work. I'm sorry. I have to end this. I knew he'd be mad, and the police would say I was being reckless. But it needed to end. The old Parker family house was dark and empty. It was abandoned after Lisa's parents died. She insisted on keeping it that way, saying it was for sentimental reasons. Now I wondered what other secrets it held. Lisa was waiting in the kitchen, a familiar coffee cup on the counter. One last drink together, she said with a smile. Fitting, isn't it? Why? I asked, pressing the record button on my phone. Why hurt all those people? Why me? He was mine first, she snapped. My brother, my family. Then others took him away. But you were the worst. You made him love you, made him choose you. He's not yours to keep, Lisa. Drink the coffee, she demanded, pushing the cup forward. Quick and painless. Better than you deserve. I reached for the cup, trying to stall for time. Just then, a floorboard creaked behind her. Lisa turned around as James stepped out of the shadows. I knew you'd come here, he said, his voice heavy with pain, to the place where it all started. Lisa's face twisted with anger. You weren't supposed to be here. This was supposed to be just us. It's over, Lisa, Detective Martinez said, stepping in with his gun drawn. We heard everything. But Lisa wasn't giving up. With a scream, she lunged at me, a syringe suddenly in her hand. Before anyone could react, a gunshot echoed through the house. Lisa fell, the syringe rolling away. Detective Martinez had shot her in the shoulder, stopping but not killing her. As they took her away in handcuffs, Lisa's calm mask finally broke. "I did it for you," she screamed at James. "Everything was for you." "No," James said quietly. "Everything was for yourself." After that, things were quieter than I expected. Lisa admitted to trying to hurt multiple people. Her journal, the recording, and the stolen chemicals found in her home were enough proof. She would spend years in prison, getting the help she needed. 6 months later, James and I were in our new home, far away from the painful memories. "The last victim before you," James said softly. "She survived but left town right after. I always wondered why. Now I know." I held his hand. "We can't change the past, but we can choose how to move forward." He smiled and pulled me close. "No more family dinners for a while." I laughed. "Actually, I was thinking we could start our own tradition. New memories, just us." The doorbell rang. It was Detective Martinez and his wife, bringing takeout, new friends, new beginnings. The coffee pot sat untouched in the kitchen. Some traditions, we decided, were better left behind. As soon as Patricia placed the teacup in front of me, I knew something was wrong. My mother-in-law gave me a sly smile, watching closely as I lifted the cup to my lips. "The tea tastes strange," she asked, pretending to be concerned. I took another sip, meeting her gaze. "No, it's perfect. My name is Olivia. I'm 32, and for the past 5 years, Patricia has been trying to push me out of her son's life. But this time, she had gone too far. 2 weeks ago, I saw her in my garden taking care of some unfamiliar plants. Patricia had always criticized my lack of gardening skills, so seeing her there was odd. Then she suddenly insisted on weekly family dinners, something she used to avoid. 'I just want us to be closer,' she had said, forcing a smile. I might have believed her if I hadn't caught her researching poisonous plants late one night. She thought no one was awake, but I saw words like untraceable and symptoms on her laptop before she quickly shut it. That's when I contacted my friend Emma, a toxicologist. I told her my suspicions, and she helped me prepare. Now, sitting at Patricia's table, I watched her closely. My husband, Mark, was working late. How convenient. "You know, Patricia," I said casually, putting down my cup, "you've taken a sudden interest in herbs." She stiffened slightly. "Oh, I just like trying new things. How are you feeling? You look a bit pale." "I'm fine," I said, checking my phone. "But I'm curious about that new plant you're growing, the one with purple flowers." Her expression flickered. "I don't know what you mean." "No?" I scrolled through my phone. "Strange, because I have photos of you planting it. It's called aconitum, or wolfsbane. Highly toxic." Patricia's face turned pale. I don't. "You know," I continued, "it's hard to detect in poisonings unless someone is looking for it." She shot up from her chair. "You're talking nonsense." "Oh, I'm feeling perfectly fine," I said, "because I've been taking an antidote for a week now. My friend Emma helped me prepare it." Her hands trembled. "You're lying." I pulled out a small recorder. "I also recorded our conversation, and I have video of you planting and preparing the wolfsbane, plus screenshots of your search history." "You went through my computer," she gasped. "No need. You should really use incognito mode when looking up murder methods." I stood up. "I've already sent the evidence to my lawyer. If anything happens to me, the police will get it." Patricia sank into her chair, her plan falling apart. "You don't understand," she whispered. "Mark deserves better. Someone from a good family, someone you can control?" I cut in. "That's what this is about, isn't it?" Just then, the front door opened. "Mom? Olivia? Sorry I'm late." Mark called out. Patricia's eyes filled with panic. I leaned in. "You have a choice. You can tell Mark everything, or I will." As Mark walked in, I smiled. "You're home early. Your mother and I were just talking about her new gardening hobby." Mark stood in the doorway, looking at us with confusion. The room was heavy with tension, and Patricia's hands trembled as she gripped the table. "What's going on?" he asked, his eyes shifting to his mother. "Mom, are you okay?" Before Patricia could speak, I held up my phone, showing him photos of her garden. "Your mom has been growing some interesting plants. Do you want to explain what you plan to do with the wolfsbane, Patricia?" Mark frowned. "Wolfsbane? That's poisonous, isn't it?" Patricia suddenly burst into tears, but this time they weren't her usual fake sobs. She looked truly terrified. "It's not what you think," she said, turning to Mark. I was trying to protect you." "Protect me?" Mark's eyes landed on the teacup in front of me. His face darkened. "Mom, what did you do?" I took out a small recorder and pressed play. Patricia's earlier words filled the room, her fake concern, my calm responses, and then her panic when I revealed that I knew about the poison. Mark slowly sank into a chair, his face pale. "You tried to poison Olivia, my wife? She's not good enough for you." Patricia suddenly screamed. "She's turned you against me. Everything was perfect before she came along." "Perfect?" Mark's voice was sharp. "You mean when you controlled everything, when you scared away every woman I dated?" I placed my hand on his arm. "There's more." I showed him the screenshots of her research, poisonous plants, their effects, how to make them untraceable. "She's been planning this for weeks." Patricia slumped in her chair, defeated. "I just wanted what was best for you," she whispered. Mark stood, fists clenched. "No, Mom, you wanted what was best for you. You tried to murder my wife." "But I didn't," Patricia protested. "She didn't drink enough." "Because I knew what you were planning, I cut in. I've been taking an antidote for a week, but you still poisoned me. That was your choice." Mark pulled out his phone. His hands shook. "I'm calling the police." "Wait," I said, covering his hand. "Let's give her a chance to be honest, maybe for the first time in her life." Patricia looked at us, her mask completely gone. The powerful, controlling woman was no more, just a desperate, lonely person afraid of losing her son. "When you married her, everything changed," she whispered to Mark. "You stopped coming by as much. You made decisions without asking me. She made you strong, and I hated her for it." "So you tried to kill her?" Mark's voice cracked. "I convinced myself it was for the best." Patricia admitted, tears falling. "I told myself you'd be happier without her. That one day you'd thank me." She shook her head. "I was wrong. I see that now." I watched her closely. For the first time, I saw her truth, not the perfect woman she pretended to be, but someone who had built her life around controlling Mark. "The police need to know," I said firmly. "You tried to kill me, Patricia, but what happens next is up to you. Will you take responsibility or will you keep lying?" Patricia hesitated, then reached into her purse and pulled out a small notebook. "This is everything," she said softly. "My research, my plans, when I planted the wolfsbane. I'll tell the police everything." Mark called the authorities. Patricia slumped deeper into her chair, the weight of her actions finally sinking in. As sirens echoed in the distance, I knew nothing would ever be the same. But when I looked at Mark, I saw his pain, but also his strength. We would get through this. Sometimes the truth, no matter how painful, was the only way forward. The next few months passed quickly, filled with police interviews, court hearings, and family therapy. Patricia pleaded guilty to attempted murder, which surprised everyone except me. Maybe she finally realized that controlling everything wasn't worth losing her son completely. On the day of her sentencing, I sat beside Mark in the courtroom, holding his hand. Patricia looked smaller in her plain navy suit, her usual confidence gone. When given a chance to speak, she turned to us. "I spent my life trying to control everything," she said, her voice steady despite her tears. "I thought I knew what was best for my son. But that wasn't love. It was control, and it nearly made me do something unforgivable." The judge sentenced her to 5 years with required psychiatric treatment. As she was led away, she looked back at us one last time. This time, there was no manipulation in her eyes, just regret. Afterward, Mark and I walked through the courthouse gardens. "I keep thinking about all the signs I miss," he said. "The way she'd insulted you, the fake concern. I should have realized sooner." I squeezed his hand. "She was your mother. You wanted to believe the best about her. How can you be so forgiving?" he asked. "She tried to kill you, Olivia." I thought for a moment. Because I won't let her actions poison our lives. She's facing the consequences, and that's enough for me. 2 weeks later, I received a letter from Patricia's psychiatrist. With her permission, he shared that she had a severe personality disorder, which made her obsess over control. She was finally getting help. Mark and I decided to sell the house near Patricia's and move somewhere new, where we could start fresh. While packing, I found the recorder with all the evidence from that night. "Should we keep it?" Mark asked. I shook my head and deleted the recording. We don't need it anymore. Holding onto it won't help anyone heal. We bought a small house with a garden, and I started growing herbs again, the safe kind. Sometimes, while tending my plants, I think about Patricia's wolfsbane, how something beautiful can turn deadly, just like her love for her son. Mark visits Patricia in prison once a month. I don't go with him, but I send letters sometimes. Not because I fully forgive her, but because I believe people can change. Her replies are different now, honest, without manipulation. She's finally becoming the mother I needed, Mark told me after one visit. It's just sad that it took something this extreme. Last week, I received a package from Patricia. Inside was a diary she'd kept since her arrest, filled with reflections on her mistakes. On the first page, she had written, "I spent my life trying to control others, only to realize the one who needed help was me. I'm sorry it took nearly destroying my family to see that." As I closed the diary, I felt a sense of peace. The woman who had tried to poison me was gone. In her place was someone finally facing her demons. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was real. It was hope. Mark and I are expecting our first child now. Some people ask if we worry about Patricia's release, about her being a grandmother. But we've learned that real strength isn't about control. It's about boundaries, honesty, and allowing change. The tea set from that night still sits in our cabinet, not as a reminder of betrayal, but of my own strength. And every now and then, I make myself a cup of tea and smile, knowing that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's moving forward, healing, and living well.